Well, as promised, I said I'd make it somehow, some way, and we are here today, and we are ready to roll a Thursday off day edition of Monarchs Mocha. Let's roll the open in three, two, one. Good morning to you from me. Good afternoon from me to you. Here we go. And we'll fade the music down right there. Good afternoon to you. And let me put the graphics up. Kind of a little blurry. I literally told you guys last night that I'd probably be a little bleary-eyed right here. And check the audio. And I believe we're on.
And we'll fade
Yeah,
the music.
there we go. Anyway, glad you're along. Monarchs Mocha brought to you by the Roastery Coffee Company you see behind me here. Got my cool little. There's some things I can do with this deal that I haven't done, and that's one of them. I'll pull that down in a minute because it'll probably get a little bright on you, but we'll come back here. We're at the Delaware Ridge Studios, which sounds very British, doesn't it? You remember that one in London, the Pinewood Studios? It's the Delaware Ridge Studios here in KCK, and see you folks kind of getting in here. I'll let you guys get in. Anyway, Monarchs Mocha show brought to you by, as you see behind me, the Roastery Coffee Company. Wait, this one. Yeah, I think I'm also got a mirror. Well, I guess I'm okay. Yeah, all right. Just making sure it's not mirrored here. Let's do this. A little better, right? If I do this one. There we go. A little better there. Glad you guys are along. Thumbs up to hearing me. I do believe I'm hearing myself, and we are ready to go. I don't have a lot for you today. I will apologize. I don't have any highlights. I hadn't been up very long, and I do have the emergency cold brew here. Look, it's hard to make out with the screen right there, but there you go. Nitro and a bottle of water. So anyway, well, last night there were 4 games in the American Association playoffs. 3 home teams won, 1 home team lost. The one home team loser was the Lincoln Salt Dogs. Your Kansas City Monarchs last night winning a 5-2 ball game that really was basically Matt Hall for 7, Greg Minier for 6, that were as far as lights out work. And then the bullpen, Lincoln's bullpen pitched pretty well last night, all things considered, that 7th inning notwithstanding. But their back end guys did a pretty good, kept the game at 5-0. Kansas City had a little trouble in the 9th inning. We will chat about that. Good to see you, Brian. Brian was on the broadcast last night. But not that much to sneeze at. To give you what happened last night, basically, it was one of the easiest game stories to write, despite a lot of things happening. What I mean by that is, when a pitcher pitches so well, which Matt Hall did, I mean, that was just ridiculous last night. There's not a lot to really say except for wow. He gives up a base hit on a 2-2 count in the first inning to Justin Bird. Then he retires the next the next 3, 6, 7 for a walk in the 3rd inning with 2 down. Then he retires the next 13 to finish the game. 13 to finish the ball game in the 7th. Brian, I think it was 102 pitches, I believe, and in 3, something like that. I mean, that's phenomenal work. I mean, that's it was a very easy game story to write, despite the bouncing of the bus down the coming out of Lincoln. I don't know if you guys have been to Lincoln, but getting out of Lincoln to get to 29, you can go to Omaha. That's the long way. The easy way is to come out right there. You cross into Iowa, and you're in Iowa for about 5 minutes, and then you cross over to Missouri, just basically about an hour, maybe not even that far, 45 minutes east of Lincoln, and you cross over the Missouri. I think it's Highway 2, maybe. It's when we come in. You come in the backside of Lincoln, but came out that way, and it's a little rough on the. There's some construction there by the Missouri River, so you bounce around a bit. Once we get to 29, we're all good. Anyway, we were home last night about 2:30, but it was a long day. I mean, that was the day it's a game day, it's a travel day, it's a getaway day, all that in one. But anyway, so I'm writing the game story, and I'm thinking, I feel like I got to write more, right? I mean, I need to write more because Hall did great stuff, right? I mean, he had to have great things happen. Well, the reality of it is he was so good, he was sort of, and the lack of a better word, a little boring. 2 Highway, I think that's right. 2 Highway. Dan's right. Dan, saw Dan last night. He was there last night. Good to see you, Dano. Good to see you, bud. Yeah, good to see you last night, too. Yeah, it's 2. Yeah, you're right. But by the way, you see the Roastery Coffee Company behind me, 6 locations in Kansas City. They bring you the show. Like I said, I got to make a trip to Price Chopper this afternoon. And Michael asked me, what are you going to do on your off day? I said, well, I need supplies for starters. I'll go get some more of this Nitro Cold Brew. And some stuff for what potentially, if the Monarchs can pull off the win tomorrow or Saturday, will be a trip somewhere, probably Sunday. And it kind of snuck up on me there, but the way this playoff schedule works, if Kansas City wins tomorrow night, or this thing goes to Saturday, the Monarchs probably leave no matter what, either late Saturday night, or the wee hours of Sunday, because wherever we're going, it's going to be either a 9-hour trip or a 13, 14-hour trip. And we'll want to get there and get our sea legs, much like we did in Lincoln, except we only had a 3-hour drive up. So that's the story. But I saw your doppelganger, Dano. Yeah, it was the ghost. The ghost. It's like I said yesterday to Michael Dixon, the play-by-play man of the Salt Dogs. I was doing my walk, and one of my walk consists of going in Lincoln right by the journalism mass comm building where he and others, the former voice, Michael Shibley, who was my assistant, Gary, where they were with the school, and there was those collegiate ghosts were there for him. Anyway, I did see your doppelganger. Kitty says, man, 1 walk and 8K runs is what you – yes. Yeah, 1 walk and 8K 0 runs. Yes, exactly. And it's sort of – you know what? And again, I don't mean to make it sound like it was boring, because it wasn't. Sitting in that seat last night, that was not boring. I mean, because they were for 6 innings, they were 1 swing away from tying the ball game, right? I mean, even though they're not a big home run threat, you had a 1-0 lead, you got an early lead, and for 7 innings that lead stood. And I'll get to the offense in a moment, but again, it sounds like it was boring, because when I wrote the game story last night, let's see here. I'm going to get to that in a second, Brian, because you bring a really good point up. And I think that's what's going to change next year, but let me get to that in a moment. Brian brings a really good point up, and I'm going to get to that because I noticed that as well, because I do read the attendance. But when you do what you did, you base hit, 5-6 hole, try the next 7, 3, 6. I'm sorry, next 8. I'm sorry, I was a leadoff. Say that 3, 6, 7. He retires the next 8 with a 2-out walk in the 3rd, then 13 in a row. And really, it wasn't like he was. He did have 4 strikeouts, I think, at one point in a row, I believe, or 3 in a row. But there was some 6 threes, 5 threes mixed in there. Very much what a big league guy would do. Let your pitches do the work for you, and let your defense help you out. You don't have to blow everybody away, and you don't have to be the perfect. Let them get themselves out. And it felt like I was watching, a big league ace, because that's really what this guy is. Matt Hall is that good. He's going to finish the ERA race this year, league 1.09. It was his third playoff start. Third time against Lincoln. Lincoln now 20 innings against Lincoln, no earned runs. How about that? And I believe 7, maybe 10 hits, maybe. I think so. 30 strikeouts against the Salt Dogs in 20 innings. Now, Minier was good. He gives up the two-out home run the first inning, which was a no-doubter to left center by Grotjohn. And then he settles in. The difference was you could feel that Kansas City was feeling him out. And the breaking ball, while it was getting in and it was fluttering enough to get strikes the inner half, the outer half, the fastball was complimenting initially. Then when the breaking ball started to get up in the zone and down the zone, and the Monarchs were laying off that they were getting traffic on. Kansas City, he only had 1, 2, 3 inning. I think that was the fourth. The Monarchs would get something on, had a leadoff single by Almeida, I believe, in the third inning. A hard shot by Malik Smith, but they're playing the infield perfectly. So I fill this out right here, right? Got my score right here. Got my sheets right here. Yeah, did that happen, by the way, Mark? I just saw that she was in hospital, but I did not see. I just saw the update on one of my news apps that she was in hospital, but I didn't know if that was the situation. But yes, I was actually watching 9 News in Australia just a few minutes ago, and then Channel 8, then I checked the app out of Dallas, and then Fox 4 here, and they'd mentioned on their feeds, but I hadn't seen that. But anyway, back to the baseball thing. Where was I? Yeah, sheets are right here. That was a leadoff single in the third inning, and a hard shot, but they played him perfectly. Hey, Brad, good to see you, mate. Congratulations last night. By the way, I was mentioning earlier that Cleveland winning last night. Cleveland winning last night. There's an ongoing joke, Brad, about the pronunciation, because a lot of our listeners believe that I should pronounce Cleburne like I do Melbourne. So it's like Melbourne is not Melbourne. That's how the Americans say Australia's Victorian city. It's not Melbourne, and it's not Cleburne. It's Cleburne and Melbourne, and almost spelled Melbun. But anyway, so the listeners continue to call me. I should say Cleveland like I say Melbourne. But anyway, the Queen did pass. Wow. Okay. Well, that was. I know that they were called to. I know the royal family situation. I mean, I follow it. My time in Australia, and I'm also mesmerized by the whole thing. I don't understand it, but I have a lot of respect for the history of it. I do know the family was called to. Wasn't she in Balmoral? I thought, which is the castle up in Scotland, I think. Am I wrong about that? But they were called the big family there. But anyway, back to baseball. Anyway, where were we? Almeida has a single. Yeah, Matt Hall rocked last night. So did Alex Valdez. We'll get to that in a moment. Line shot back up the box by Malik Smith. And they didn't play perfectly for a double play ball, and Alexis is getting doubled up. Kansas City, the 1, 2, 3, 4th inning, then had the single in the 5th double play ball. So 2 double play balls stumped in the offense, and you had a 2-out single in the 2nd. But you still had a feeling you're getting some traffic, right? These weren't little dribblers. I mean, the single for Almeida was a solid shot. Bruce's single was a solid shot. I mean, you got a little traffic going. Casey had a single that was a rocket as well. That 1-out single from Alex Smith coming in the 5th inning. And again, the breaking ball started to get up and down a little bit for Minier, where the slider, that back door for Hall, that was getting tighter and tighter and getting harder to pick up. And the difference is, for the most part, the slider is what it does. It slides off the table, right? Where the breaking ball does often, more of a drops in, right? That's sort of the difference, not to get too specific about it, but that's what was going on. And you can start to see, Scott Weber was trying to, get that thing back down and in, and the tightness was gone. And eventually Kansas City would, the effectiveness of being patient, looking to count deep, eventually pays off in the sixth, or pardon me, seventh inning. One out, walk, infield single that was hit pretty hard and just knocked down. They had two really rockets at third that Ryan Long just, I don't know how they were about as hard as hit balls you're going to see, hit toward third. And let me get this down, sorry. There we go. It's hard to, Ryan Long did all he could do just to put his body in front of it. He's like a hockey goalie. And the one that Bruce hit, it hit so hard, he didn't know where the ball went. He knocks it down. He didn't know if the ball was behind him, in front of him. He didn't know where it was. Then he realizes, it's to my left. And he's scrambling for it. And, it was wheels off. But by the way, we talked about making an ace fielder position. And where Kansas City started to really push the gun and be able to get the bunt down, Lincoln couldn't do. Lincoln shows a bunt on the Hall in the sixth, or the fifth inning, can't get it down. Monarchs with Malik Smith gets the bunt down in the sixth inning as well. And you could start to see, okay, this thing's starting to turn. It's 1-0. You got a little something going. And sure enough, in the seventh, with 2 outs to walk, infield single, that smash there. And then Cosma again hits one just like it that Bruce hits. This time, Long, it's on him so quickly, he's basically trying to backhand it. He sees the ball, and his only reaction is to backhand toward the bag. And that ball's on him so quick that either that ball's going to the corner for a double, or was going to be in the foul territory for the double. And he fields it, and he's just basically, can you imagine that exit velocity? I don't know what it was, but it was off the bat, coming at you pretty quick. And your only reaction is to do that and just stab at it off the glove, slows it down a little, but still kicks off the playing field down to foul territory, but down toward the corner as well. Either way, it was going to go to the corner. Scoring 2 runs there. So now it's 3-0. And then you have the second and third. You had the wild pitch. I'm sorry, pass ball. I thought it was a wild pitch personally, but the pitch was up. Exit Minier, enter Matt Cronin, has been a really good story for them. And Malik Smith, solid single, boom, it's 5-0. Pretty much your ball game there. Either the bullpen comes in. Let me get to a couple of these things. I'm going to get caught up in your questions here as I review this. This is why I wish I would have had the highlights for you. And then you go to the ninth inning. McGrain comes in, gets a leadoff single. It hit real hard by Justin Burr, but a 5-6, almost like the hit he had in the first inning. And 5-6 hole, strikeout. And then from there, sheets up here. Single from Ryan Long, wild pitch to second and third, a walk to Jason Rogers, and you're still 5-0, right? Just gonna trade outs for bases, right? Trade outs for bases. That's all you're doing. But Nate Sampson sighting, the former Sioux City Explorer, made his debut for Lincoln last night, base hit to right center, scores 2, and suddenly you're like, okay, the tying run's batting. Valdez comes in, strikeout, fielder's choice, game over. Basically, it was 6 pitches, no more than that. He went 1-2, 2-2. I'm sorry, 1-2, strikeout. So it was 4. And then I believe on Dotel it was 2. It was a third pitch. So 3, 7 pitches, and you're out of the ball game. So I think Joe didn't wait around. And I talked about this a little bit 2 weeks ago, and I've said it a couple times. I think McGrain in the high leverage situations, for whatever reasons, a little flat. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I haven't talked to JMO about it, and I haven't really talked to anybody. I don't know the mechanics of it, but it just looks like a little flat in those high leverage situations. He was a different guy pitching over the weekend in low leverage situations. And last week in Winnipeg, he was very, very good. I don't know if it's the adrenaline. I don't know if he gets so fired because he's a real competitive guy out there in that closer role. He got to be. So I don't know what it was exactly, but anyway. Okay, let's get caught in your questions and comments here because a lot of you guys had some things. Let's go back here. Let me go to Brian. Brian, I'm going to put this up on the screen. Here's last night's attendance, 2116 at Shaw Park, 586 at Franklin, 704 at Haymarket, none given in Cleveland. Now, Brad might have that number for us. Brad, did you get that for us? Let's see, Brad's got it. Don't see it there. I watched some of their highlights a few minutes ago and just a couple of their posts. It looked like, now remember, Cleveland's a smaller ballpark. I mean, it seats like, I think, 2,000, something like that, with the grass seating. But it doesn't need a big crowd to feel like it's a good crowd, right? I mean, their crowd were 600-700. It's about half the stadium. But I think, and I was talking to Charlie Meyer, the GM of Lincoln, last night about this. Lincoln didn't know that they were going to the postseason until Monday. Now, granted, they kept winning, and there was a possibility going into to Monday. But you don't want to in this game. You don't start putting out playoff ticket posts on a Monday when you're playing in a ball game. You're up 10-0, and all of a sudden you lose 11-10. You just don't do that. It's just not something you do. I'm very optically against that. And I think they wanted to wait till the final out. And they had basically Monday holiday where everybody's gone, Tuesday, the one day. And honestly, we were on Haymarket. I was around the area there in Lincoln, and most folks didn't know that the Salt Dogs were the playoffs. It's just hard. It's hard to get that out, even in social media. I mean, social media, you got to remember, social media is great to get people's attention, but you got to get them off their butt to go. And a lot of times for me, I don't always throw them on feed, and I'll say, okay, well, so-and-so's playing today. There's a concert. Oh, that sounds like a cool thing, but I got something else going on. I mean, it's the same reaction. I mean, advertising only works so much. People got to want to go, and they've got to, have some kind of feeling about it. And I just think that they only had 24 hours to already sell it. And I feel for them. The Milwaukee deal, I got no idea there. I don't understand that. I would be, as good as that operation is, and I don't know them personally, but I know what they do is pretty good. And that Rock Ventures has got a really good operation there. That's disappointing because granted, they didn't know, and that's the problem. You don't know. I mean, Milwaukee didn't know they were going to be picked until Monday. And so this is the drawback of this whole thing. How many were Monarchs fans last night? Well, Sneeda was there. Matt Hall's family was there. Mark Brandmeier, Mark McKee, Susie Hollis, they were there. Nate Herron was there. There was another family to my right. I would say last night, probably 50, maybe. Something like that. And what I don't get is, here's what I would do. This is just me, and I'm again, I don't know. I love the Lincoln guys. I think they do a great job. In that situation, that's one of those situations, maybe last night, where you go to campus and you ask the university, hey, can we bring over the mascot and just pass out tickets when the classes change? Really? As classes are changing, because I walked the campus yesterday and classes are changing, and you just kind of mix in with the professors like you're just a professor working out. And I just pass out tickets because if I was a college kid, and there were some there last night, not a lot, but some, I'm a college kid, I run a Wednesday night beer special and say, hey, this gets you in for free and come out and see the ball game. And I guarantee you, if you're a college student in the dorm and you got 4 or 5 mates, you guys are sports nuts, you're out there. We got a ball game to go to. Why not? The other thing last night in Lincoln, and this is something that I talked about in the broadcast, Lincoln also had there was a big volleyball game going on in Omaha. Now, they had 15,000 at the arena in Omaha. Creighton, based in Omaha, and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, based in Lincoln, had a big volleyball match. I believe Nebraska's second in the country to the University of Texas. I think that's right. And Creighton's like 10th or 11th in the country. Huge matchup. 15,000 fans. It was on TV. It was on TV and radio, mind you. And I told you last night in the broadcast, when I walked in when I was about to roll the pregame, I went to the restroom, kind of get one more, okay. like you're going on stage kind of deal. Went back to the booth and grabbed a couple of waters, and they were watching. They were watching. There was like 4 or 5 people in the press area, or the stadium club, watching it on TV. And I felt bad grabbing ice from the young woman who was tending bar there because she was watching the game. I said, when a commercial comes, no hurry. I just want a couple of cups of ice. They were into that. So there's that too. All those combinations. So I can only tell you what Lincoln's situation is, and I feel for Charlie. That's a tough thing, man. Having to sell tickets in 24 hours, that's hard. I mean, we're busting our tails for a game we've known about. We knew that we'd be at home last Friday, right? When we made the announcement Friday would be home. And you don't know if you're going to play Friday, Saturday. You don't know. You want to sell tickets for Friday and Saturday, but you don't want to play. But you only want to play Friday, right? So it's a bit of a mess, and I think that's the thing that this whole picking thing. What it did, because you're going to play now. Granted, the seeding still may go down the final day, and that's the problem. And I don't know. And I have an idea. This is my idea. I don't know if it would fly, but it's an idea. This is the kind of thing that would start maybe a conversation. Could you do something like a College World Series style deal? Make it an event. I mean, turn your, maybe less focus on an all-star game and more focus on the postseason, where you have, I don't know, a round robin in Lincoln and a round robin in Chicago, let's say. And those 4 teams all play at a College World Series type tournament, seeding wise, and then come out of it for a best of 5 home and away. You see what I'm saying? Something you can sell in advance, right? Something you can sell in advance of, oh, by the way, we have a game in 24 hours. That's hard, man. And it's the hardest thing. It's the biggest question that minor league baseball, quote unquote, affiliated ranks have had for years. I've told this story before. In 2000, it was actually 99, the Burlington Bees made the postseason for the first time in 30 years. Now, that little town of Burlington was fired up. We had really good crowds. We went to King County, same King County in our league now, who was still tops in attendance like they were in our league this year. We go there for the playoffs, and it was a ghost town. We'd been there in July, and the place was jamming. We were there on a playoff game, and it really was. They barely broke 1,000. In reality, it was Burlington outdrew them in the postseason. Our little ballpark that sat around 4 was about half full on the first game and about 3/4 full the second, because the town was going nuts for this team to finally do something. Had nothing to do. That's because it's a smaller town. But again, if we're gonna out, and again, this is DV talking. This is not the Monarchs. This is just me. But I'm trying to provide some insight and maybe some ideas to help our league, because clearly the fans loved this whole pick the team thing. That's great, and you can still pick the teams. Maybe the Monarchs pick who they want to play in the round robin, but make it an event. I don't know. Have a concert schedule. Have the event has concerts and fireworks every night. Turn it into an event. Encourage people. Sell it all season. The playoffs are going to be held in, I don't know, do it in Omaha. I mean, do it wherever. And announce that you're going to do it. I don't necessarily think that each team should host. I'm throwing these out there just as an idea. Snito's dead to me because he didn't invite you. Yeah, he was there. He was there, and security was watching him. Those yellow jackets were watching him closely there. They were. But again, I don't know that this is a problem that minor league baseball, I've done this long enough. I know that my ideas sometimes are met with roll of the eyes. And I know sometimes I don't always parallel what the league says, and not because I'm against the league. I love the league. I love what the league does is great, okay? And what we're doing is great. I love our league. I love it. It's delicious baseball. It's competitive. We play to win. I love that. That's what I always talk about. What's the difference between what we do and the Texas League does? We play to win. Well, they kind of play to win in the Texas League, but do they? Do they? I would tell you, if they're playing to win, Ryan Grotjohn plays more games when he was in Northwest Arkansas than he did. But that was not the way they were doing it. Chris Woodger, their manager, is a great guy, is sort of hamstrung there. He's got to play certain prospects and see what they got. They got to figure out this guy can play, not necessarily the best player. I mean, I remember being in Double-A years ago. There was a guy named Jim Gutierrez who was basically a minor league journeyman. He was the best pitcher we had in Double-A on our team in Jacksonville. But, we had a lot of prospects. Derek Lowe made the big leagues. Chris Woodger was on that team, who's now the manager for the Double-A club of the Royals. We had Ron Vallone. Those guys were going to get their innings. But it came down to getting a game to win. When you need a game to win, Jim Gutierrez is our best pitcher, but he wasn't a prospect. And, that's the way it works. Just the way it works in that ranks. But the American Association plays to win. And if that's the goal, which I believe it is, to promote the league brand, well, how do we come about getting more folks at the stadium for the playoffs? Because that's an age-old problem. It's not a problem in the NHL or the NBA or the NFL. It's not really a problem in Major League Baseball in most markets. I went to the World Series and the National League Championship Series in the COVID year in Arlington, and that we had played in the bubble or whatever you want to call it, hub, and they sold 15, 20,000 seats or whatever. That's all they could sell. They had a cap at the time. They sold them all. Again, that's just going for the baseball. Sorry, my eyes got sleeping still. Sorry about that. So how do we grow it, guys? How do we grow it? And I think that's the question, because I think what Brian brings up is a good question. I mean, what do we do for attendance in the postseason? And I think what we're trying to do, and I know Mr. Brandmeier feels this way, and I agree with him, is just get the word out. We're doing all we can do. Morgan's done a great job. Nick and tickets. I mean, the whole crew is doing what we can do. Bob, we've had people here in town, local celebrities. I saw Krishna Okoye did a thing for us as well. The museum's pushing it, but there's a lot of stuff going on. For example, this weekend, as we pulled in last night, we got off the bus, got in our cars, went back to our separate ways. I'm going down parallel. I'm not parallel. I'm going on state. And what do I see? RVs are already out there for the race this weekend. You got NASCAR here. You can't control that. We didn't know back in February that we knew the race was this weekend. We didn't know we would be playing the playoffs. We hoped we would be, right? But you don't know. And there's a race this weekend. Now, how do we capitalize on that? Well, unfortunately, my idea there is open up the parking lot for the race folks and say, you guys park here, put your RVs here. And oh, by the way, our gates are going to be open during Friday from noon onward. We're going to run beer specials and food specials. We're going to have baseball at 6. So if you're bored, you got nothing else going on, you walk over from your RV and your truck or whatever, and you walk in and enjoy some time out, because you're cooped up in the RV, right? You're sitting in your lawn chair. Let's go see what's going on over here. I mean, make it a pedestrian-friendly deal. Unfortunately, all the parking's done across the way, but if you parked over there, I mean, again, that's just an idea. I throw it out there with no thinking at all. It's just something that I thought about. Yeah, I think sometimes my passion gets lost in Monarchs' passion, which is first and foremost to me. I believe the Monarchs, that's my number one goal, but the league's still very important. And how do we solve this problem? If we're going to do the things we're doing, which I think are great, how do we solve the problem? And I think Mark brings a really good point up there. I mean, Shaw Park, 2,000 folks, that's not a terrible Wednesday night crowd for them. They're probably only about, they probably had 3,000 last Wednesday. What was the attendance last Wednesday? I can tell you. Last Wednesday in Shaw Park, we were there. The attendance was, drum roll please, it was, last Wednesday in Winnipeg, they drew 3,839. Now, the Tuesday night crowd, which was a French night, they drew 4,000. They drew 3,244 on Monday, 4,020, and 3,839 on Wednesday. So they were at 2,000 last night. Not terrible. I mean, it's not capacity. It's not what they, it's not what they normally draw, but it was a better effort. That's pretty good. Lincoln also has a stadium that seats 8,000 too. That's a big ballpark. And so I would tell you 1,000 folks in Lincoln makes it look like it's a ghost town. It's like the same problem Gary has. Gary used to see it around 7. And if Gary had 1,000, it felt like there was 2 people there. So there's that mixed. We're big too. Our ballpark's big. 1,000 folks in our ballpark looks like it's empty. And they can be pretty loud, but it doesn't always look that way. Anyway, it's an age-old problem, and hopefully we'll work on it. Brian says the league needs to address the attendance issue. I like your idea of passing on tickets. Maybe they did have a low fixed cost. I mean, there's easy ways without going to major overhaul. But if what baseball needs is an overhaul, which I seem to think that's the agreement in the major leagues, in the minor leagues. And I use the word minor because I mean differentiating between major league professional baseball and professional baseball. If that's the goal, is to have robotic umpires and to have faster between pitches and only so many mound visits. All the things we're doing. We're going to have different playoff. We're going to have different extra inning rules. All these things we're doing. Well, if everything's off the table, there's no reason why. In this situation, what's the weakness of the situation? Well, you can't get folks to come to playoff games. Well, make it an event. How do you do that? Well, if your all-star game's an event, why can't your playoff games be an event? Now, granted, you don't know the teams necessarily, but the College World Series happens every year. No one knows the teams, but people go, right? It took some time to get there, obviously. No one knows who the Final 64 are going to be in the NCAA tournament. Some of them. I mean, KU obviously is going to be there usually. Texas Tech lately. But if you're Vermont, you win the A-10 they play in or whatever that league is up there. I mean, whatever. You might make it. We don't know. But people will when you make it an event, people will respect it as an event, right? And I think that's where we're coming from. And I think that's probably, if we're going to go down this road of kind of changing things, I'm all for, if we're going to do it, let's do it all for. Let's all do it. The idea was over in Australia a couple of years ago. They did the same thing during the pandemic. It was with mixed success. The only problem was the game times did lend for really a bad walk-up. And that was the one thing. The walk-up crowd wasn't coming to the early 11 o'clock game, which for the people on the west coast of Australia was an 8 a.m. game or whatever it was that time of year. And the TV numbers were a little rough at 8 a.m. I mean, people are having coffee going to work at 8 a.m. They're commuting at that time of morning. And they probably should have played the home team, the more closer team, earlier game, but they played the home team later. I mean, there were some things, but it was met with some decent success. The only problem is you're also in a situation where you're against the clock because any moment, and this is what happened, Queensland closed their borders, Victoria closed their borders, eventually South Australia closed their borders, and Western Australia closed their borders on the pandemic. And so they picked up stakes and moved, and they never really got the whole thing shoot to fruition. I thought the idea was there, the little hub, what they did, I thought it was great. And they were doing that during regular season hubs. It was kind of cool. So anyway, let's see here. What else I miss here? Electric crowd. Yeah, Cleveland. Yes. Okay, there's the Cleveland. That's a great crowd. That's a huge crowd last night in Texas. That's a big congratulations to you guys, Brad, and John Junker and that crew. I have nothing but respect and love for that group of people. They're some of my favorite people in this game, and that is really good. And as one who lives in the fringe of that area, I mean, I don't live. My winter home is an hour and 15 minutes from there. I mean, it's a long way, but it's the same metro area. It's a long way. That's cool. That's great, man. That's really great. Congratulations. Now, that's the interesting part about it. And Mark brings a really good, I think the Winnie and Milk have huge momentum. Yeah. By the way, we're on Monarchs Mocha. Dan Vaughn with you as we reset the show here. Brought to you by the Roastery Coffee Company. You see him behind me here. Monarchs, the only road team to win last night. So of the three, my question to you is, I think Mark answers Winnipeg and Milk. Now, I have not heard the update on the Max Murphy injury, but apparently he was carted off the field last night. I've heard unconfirmed reports that Murphy is not going to return to the series, but I I don't know. The official game story had him injuring his leg. One of our listeners who is a Fargo fan said that he, was not, it was bad. I don't know. I just know what I read and what I've heard kind of through the grapevine that, it's a pretty bad leg injury and that he will not be back. That is a huge loss for Winnipeg. I mean, that's huge. But I really think the interesting matchup of the bunch is the Milwaukee-Chicago game. Milwaukee's kind of, like I told you, Anthony Barone told me back we were there in June or July. It was July, I guess it was. His team started off so great last year and kind of hit the wall. They've kind of flipped the script a little bit this year. And Chicago sort of flipped the script. They won the division, but they had to hold on tooth and nail. They didn't go. Chicago didn't go in parading in. Okay, they went in they weren't red hot like Lincoln or Kansas City or Fargo was even though they lost that last road trip, went 2-5. I think that's right. 2-5. They went on that last road trip. They still had a much better finish than Chicago did. Chicago, lost 9 in a row, something like that, 1-9 as one stretch. But I think the interesting one is that one. The other one is going to be interesting to see how the travel affects both the Railroaders and the Cougars, because that's a long trip. I mean, make no bones about it. If you think Winnipeg to KC is long, just remember that we are closer to Cleveland than we are to Winnipeg, and that Chicago area to Texas, that DFW, is about 16 hours. I've done it before. I've ridden that ride before. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about this morning. If today's my father's birthday, he would have been 83, passed in 16. Miss him dearly. Happy birthday, Dad. I love you. Which sucks because I would like to have talked about last night's game to him. But anyway, I digress. I remember one time in 2015 or 14, my dad came over to watch us play in Grand Prairie. I was at the Railcats, and the getaway day, and spent the day in the booth and hugged him and said goodbye, and got that daggum bus during rush hour traffic, got to our day game, crossed Dallas and went back to Chicagoland, and it was a long ass trip. That's the story I've told where we went to the In-N-Out Burger that Greg Taggart wanted to go to. But anyway, that's a long trip, and you had the off day the next day, but we didn't get in until, I don't know, after lunch the next day. It was a long trip. It was a long one. And that's tough. So how those teams respond from that will be interesting to see. And my guess is they probably flew a couple, probably King County didn't take their starter for game 2 down, or 3 if needed. And I imagine the Railroaders flew whoever starts game 2 up. And Brad could probably answer that. Brad, are you riding the bus? I doubt it. He's a flyer like myself. Although, do you guys realize I've flown all 3 of the 2-city swings? I did not fly. I did not fly to Canada, in or out, like I have before in years gone by. I did take the hard way. And I think it's made me appreciate the situation a lot more too. So anyway, David says I was wrong. 3 of my 4 game predictions. That's why these games are fun. Yes. Now, again, if you're those 3 home teams, you did what you needed. 3 of the 4 home teams did what they had to do to give them a chance to win the series. You must win that home game correctly, because it's a tough call. These teams are all so good. To go on the road and win 2 games on the road is a tough call. Not that it's impossible. It's not impossible, but it's a tough call, right? And winning 2 ball games away from your ballpark to move on in elimination is hard. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Does not mean Lincoln can't do it. Lincoln can do it. Everybody can do it. The reality is it's going to be a tough go. And these are, high stakes ball games. Now, of the ones I think personally, the most dangerous of the bunch is Milwaukee in that Chicago matchup. I agree. I think that's the right one. I think the Cleveland and King County one, I think that goes 3 ball games. I mean, I think that goes 3 for sure. And I think Fargo and Winnipeg goes 3 as well. I just think the drop-off for Winnipeg pitching wise, it's not really a drop off. They're very steady, but there's not any drop off for Fargo. I mean, Fargo's going to roll out there against Growl. Tomorrow would be not Growler. Tomorrow is Peyton Weddington, who, if and that's the other thing. I don't know what happened last night exactly, but they went with an ace as well. And their ace didn't pitch very well. And they went 3 innings last night. Is that right? 3 innings for McGovern. But you've got 2 really good lefties at home have been pretty good. So I would tell you that that's going to be a challenge for whoever goes in that way. And here we go. But yeah, let's see here. Mark's saying, how many of the 3 lower seeds? And again, I'll answer that again. I think the lower seeds, I think Milwaukee's got the best chance. I know a lot of fans would tell you that, I shouldn't say this. I don't say that's just not right. There's probably I think the Winnipeg Fargo deal is half and half. I think half the fandom in the association. Those are 2 teams very polarizing over the years. You got to remember, Winnipeg and Fargo have long histories in both this league and the old Northern League. So a lot of hardcore fans have really hot opinions on those 2 teams. For example, here's Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Fargonian, Old St. Paul. You ain't a fan of Winnipeg. If you're Winnipeg, St. Paul, Sioux Falls, Sioux City, you're not a big fan of Fargo. Gary, you're a Gary Railcat, you're not a fan of either one. Those teams all have a long history. Now, Kansas City has played those teams in the postseason, but I think the Monarchs fans are a little more, they're not quite as, because they're not so close. I mean, Fargo and St. Paul had a huge rivalry in Winnipeg. That was a 3-way, just didn't like each other at all. That was 3 families that didn't like each other at all. Now, with St. Paul gone, Sioux Falls kind of fits the mix as well in that bunch that don't like any of those teams at all. And I think the fandoms, and I think some of the fandoms will line up in the newer teams, Chicago, Milwaukee fans, King County, Cleveland. I don't think any of them, are pulling one way or the other, but I think in general, of the series that are left, there's a lot. It's probably half and half. Venom for Winnipeg, venom for Fargo. Personally, I still think Fargo is the body of work will come out of this one. If it doesn't, if the body of work for Fargo doesn't come through, then that will be a shock and an upset. Okay, that's an upset. What I think the league is going to get right about that series is they're going to go 3 games. Fargo's going to get 2 home games, and they have to have 2 home games to win the series. It's going to be everybody's going to get a game. They're going to get 2, have good crowds on Friday and Saturday. I think everybody's going to be a winner there. I think. So with that being said, yeah, I saw that, Brad. I saw your note on the starting pitching. You guys had really good starting pitching. 2.23 last 21. By the way, are you flying or driving? Inquiring minds want to know. Yeah, I saw that. You guys have been really good. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't watch a lot of it, but I saw a lot of that. But yeah, you're flying this afternoon. There he is. Flying this afternoon. See? Telling you, these games were not decided based upon who you wanted to play. They were decided on based upon the odometer. I'm telling you right now, Kansas City was in Lincoln, not because the Monarchs thought they could beat Lincoln. Yeah, we'll beat Lincoln. Because it's a 3-hour drive. So, no, I don't know what happened with Chicago. The drive was the same to whether they play Milwaukee. Well, Milwaukee's a little further. King County's across town. I mean, they didn't have to. They weren't going to be driving more than an hour and a half anywhere they went, right? So they weren't picking Cleve because they didn't want to go to Texas. And yes, Cleveland's really good and playing good baseball. They're playing really good. No one wants a part of them. I agree. But at the same time, the biggest challenge there is you don't want to get in a bus for 16 hours. Simple fact. The reason we didn't go to Winnipeg, yes, we won 6 games up there. Do you want to? But we do want to drive up there right now. If we're going to drive there, we're going to drive later, right? Not today. I mean, we have to go. We're eventually going to drive 9 hours or 13 hours, either way. But we have a chance to drive 3. What are you going to do? And that 3-hour drive gets you a win, and now you got a chance to close it out and have some extra time off. There's that too. So anyway, yeah, Brad, you guys have been really good. Yeah, sorry I saw that, but yeah, 17-14 the last. The three hottest teams in the last. Fargo obviously was really good from July on, but they kind of teetered off that last road trip. The Railroaders get to 500 means they had to do some serious playing, and they did. Lincoln finished strong that last 10, and then Kansas City. Remember this, and when we're talking about how good Cleveland's been, Kansas City went on that. There was 3 two-city road trips in August. Remember, we go to August, last day of July. We get walked off in. We close out July with a loss to Sioux Falls. Yeah, we could have got 19 wins in the month of July, right? We get walked off in Sioux Falls, and we go to we have 3. We go home. We have 3 two-city road trips coming our direction in August, 2 of which are to Canada in 3 weeks. 2 week off and back up again. And I got to tell you, I mean, look at that schedule back in May. You're like going, you got to get some games in your pocket because that's gonna be rough. Well, sure enough, that first road trip came home. Ride the ship. I believe it was Lincoln we played, or Sioux Falls. I forget which. I can tell you. Got the game notes right here. Yeah. So you close out August. Okay, yeah, you came home. That's right. You had Kane County for 8, or for 6. Remember, you had Kane County at home and in 3rd place. The Monarchs had a really bad roll. Kansas City won the only ball game against King County here on the 3rd of August, but lost the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So get off to a August start of 1 and 7, 2 and 7, 2 and 9 to start the month of August. But the 13th on, you go 3. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 0, 7 and 4, and then another 8. So 18 and 4, 18 and 5. 21 and 5 since that time. And the 2 hottest teams are the Railroaders and the Monarchs. I mean, those 2 teams have been the hottest. Kansas City, the winning streaks of 8 and 7 in those stretches. So, yeah, the Monarchs finished the season. And, yeah, Brad saying that after 6-24 start, they were dreadful. But I think, and this is where the playoffs get it right, the Railroaders 6-24 start, what's their punishment for that? The 4th seed, right? I mean, that's their punishment. They do get to 500, and they clawed and scratched and got there. But the body of work was they're the hottest team right now along with Kansas City, and they're dangerous as heck, no doubt about it. And that's why I think that series there in King County goes 3, and it will not shock me. As I told Brad this, we were playing them down there back in July. I said, you guys will make the postseason. So all you got to do is get in that 4th spot. And they were slowly climbing up. And eventually when they got on Gary's bumper and they went back and forth with Gary the latter part of the season, their last 6 weeks, they caught him and eventually took care of business. I told him that. Frankly, I told him that several times last year. But I know he knows I told him this. I walked out and told him he'll make the postseason. It was hard to realize then because they were dreadful. But they wind up doing what they do. And again, that's where the body of work is the 6-24 start. The punishment is their 4th seed. The reward is they make the playoffs. And that's the reward. That's what I love about it. There is a reward for getting things right. So anyway, all right, what else you guys got here? What did I miss earlier? Do I think Joe C will ever pitch Hall on a short rest going forward? It's tempting. I'll get to Brad's other question. Do I think Joe overpitched Hall in short rest? Actually, I'm going to change the background up. You guys want me to change the background up? Let's do that. Let's change the background up just a little bit. Let's just do a little bit of this. While we're here, so we're going a little longer. I didn't think I'd go this long, but boy, you guys got me fired here. There we go. Let's change it up and do this. Let's do this. There we go. I like that. A little different, just a little different. The Heights of Delaware Ridge studio. The Heights of Delaware Ridge Studios. Dan Vaughn, broadcaster. Is he tired? Is he awake? How does he survive the ride from Winnipeg? Find out next. Yes. No, I don't think so. I don't think so, Kenny. I think he would only in a situation where Matt says, I will do it. That'll be his call. They're close. If you heard last night's pregame show, you guys would have heard Joe saying, Dan, his quote was, Dan, you know how I feel about this guy? Because we talked about how special he is. And Joe feels very close to him. Yeah, beautiful beige wall. Yeah, again, it's the Heights. It's great. I'm going to change the back. Okay, let's change the back. Dan's whinging about the beige wall. I shot it here before, Dano. Come on. I know I don't like the wall either, but it's what you do. It's what your house is. You know, back at my winter home, I'd like to make the walls colorful and crazy, but the wife makes them white and kind of stand out with the art. So there's that. She does the decorating, by the way. I mean, literally, the wife did all the. My in-laws are interior decorators and do the redesigns and redos and all that, which is great because impressive because my mother-in-law is legally blind, and she and her husband, phenomenal, who've been to our ballpark many times and love the Monarchs. They're interior designers and do redos, and the woman's blind and she's phenomenal. But with her and my wife and my father-in-law, they had everything down to the door handles. DB had little or no input. Literally didn't care if we had backsplash or I did a backflip. I don't care. I want my key to work and my internet to work, and I can watch my games. That's what I want to work. That's it. And where's the whiskey? Or where's the rum? Where's the aged rum? Okay. Yeah. Background Dan. You want background? Okay. You guys want background? All right. Let's do this. Let's do a little background. You guys want background? Hope. No, this is I've lived here I've lived in this complex since 2017. Do you guys know that? I mean, I never really publicized that, but this has been I've lived in the same place. You know, people say, where do you live in Kansas City? They think I don't live here. I do live here. I'm blessed to live in two places. I have our home is in Dallas. And our other home is here. We have two homes. Literally, not that we own two homes. This is not an owner, but this is my neighborhood. This is my little. I'm going to my walk in a few minutes, and it's my neighborhood. I'll see the people I see all the time. Hopefully, I see my buddy Zeus, this black lab mix. I always see him. I take him treats. Love that guy, and my dog Max loves him too. They're good mates. Anyway, no, I meant background is the fancy word for wall. Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. Okay. All right. I just want to change it up because anyway. I just wanted to have some production value, Hope. Like I was trying. Okay, where was I? Brad asking me up here. McKinney, if Matt wants to do that, he would, but I don't know if that's something that will happen. Again, it didn't happen last year. It didn't come up. It's never happened here. In the times Joe's been here in the postseason, I'm trying to think. No one's thought on short rest. No one. Going back to 18, even 19, 21 champion. No one's ever done that. Let's see here. I didn't get this to Brad. Did I make serious picks before they started? Curious to yes. I didn't make. I mentioned on our show that I thought that I thought that, obviously I believed Fargo would win that series, but I mentioned that I would not be shocked that every road team lost. I would not be shocked by that. I mean, outside of Kansas City, taking the Monarchs out of it. I did. I like Cleveland at home. If there was a Vegas number, I'd have taken that and played the money line because I just felt at home. You had your first time last year. You had lost a heartbreaker last year to Sioux City. I felt like Cleveland was going to win that game at home. I still stand by that. I believe Cleveland wins that series on Saturday. I believe. I'm not completely sold now that Fargo will win that series on Saturday. I think they will. I think they should. But now the way that game went yesterday in Winnipeg, I could be wrong there. I believe Milwaukee will close out Chicago. That's just my take. And that again, I think Milwaukee's played better than Chicago has in general, but that's just my take. Again, they got to win 2 games at home. Very well could. But these 3-game series are dicey. That doesn't mean they're the best teams. Okay, it doesn't mean that. What I'm telling you is the best team may not win, but the best team for 3 games. It's something Joe said yesterday. I asked him on the pregame yesterday in the top step, how do you go about managing these series for the playoffs regular season? What's the difference? Is there any difference, or is it business as usual? And his answer was pretty much what I expected in general, but this is one part he brought up that I've talked about over the years, and I learned very early on in my career from Tom Nieto, the former Cardinal and Twin backup catcher. He told me the same thing as well. These 3-game series that's why series are important. That's why the big league mind of series wins are important. Because what this boils down to, and Joe said it last night, is this boils down to a 3-game series, whether it be home and away, whatever. It's a 3-game series. And the goal is to always win 2 of 3, right? That's the goal. In a 3-game series, we talk about the baseball math. That is the goal. And that's what you go through all season. That sounds like monotonous talk, I know, but that's what you do. 2 of 3, 2 of 3, 2 of 3. And you win 2 of 3, you'll wake up, you'll be a champion or a playoff team or whatever. And that's the baseball math. That's why in the big leagues, and this is what Tom Nieto taught me years ago, my first year, I'll never forget this. He would tell me that the big leagues, he got to catch a lot on those extra days, meaning he was the backup. Frontline guy would catch 2 games of the series. He'd catch the getaway day. But oftentimes, that was the game that there were times they would sweep. Sometimes they wouldn't. But he always knew he would catch on those getaway days. Whenever the team had already won 2 ball games, there was no pressure. They weren't trying to win a series. If they'd already won the series on that 3rd ball game, he was playing, and there was no pressure. And he would deliver, and he had there was not a lot of pressure on those guys. And that's why the big leagues did it for years. That was why. And that's why in baseball it says 2 of 3, whatever, because winning series is the mathematics. And I believed that, of the 3, that I believed that Milwaukee would take 2 of 3. I believed that Fargo would take 2 of 3. And I believe that Kansas City take 2 of 3. And I believe that Cleveland would take 2 of 3. Now, I didn't take into account that King County's been really good at home. They've been really good there. And Nick Franklin provides a little extra pump. And that was really a coin flip. I think what I would love to see, Brad, is see King County and Cleveland play a 5-game series and Kansas City and Fargo play a 5-game series or 7. I don't do power rankings because I don't have time for it because you have to kind of back them up. I love what Kevin Luco does with This Week in the Association. I love his stuff. He's been doing it for a long time, and the league does them too. But Kevin's been doing them for years. And I would tell you that, if I was going to power rank them, obviously Fargo, Kansas City, either week was 1 and 2. But then, the last 6 weeks, Cleveland's been right there at number 3. And King County's been right there at number 3. They've kind of been back and forth. Those 2 teams have been back and forth, back and forth. And then you slide in Milwaukee. Chicago's body of work is a number 1, but the last 4 weeks, they hadn't been a number 1. So anyway, I know I kind of rambled on there to answer Brad's question, but that's what DB does. All righty, what else we got here? Last call for questions. I got to get working out and get this day going and wash some clothes. Yeah, and that's the thing about a 3-game series. I didn't hear. All I read was, and I might see anything there. Let me see if there's anything in my email box because I have not heard anything since last night. Let me see if I've heard anything. No, I got nothing here. Yeah, I just know that it just says in the game story, and I've not checked with them, but it just said that he was injured, injury, a leg injury, and left the ball game. I don't want to speculate because, but the information I was given, Dan, was that he was done for the year. But again, I can't confirm that. And I was asleep, to be honest with you. When we got in, I unwound and I went to bed because that was a great day yesterday. But we were up and at 'em and had the show and checked out all that stuff. I mean, it was a whirlwind day and got back late, as you saw. Still wide awake, but got back and kind of had to just sort of decompress a bit. But yeah, yeah, anything that happened in a 3-game series. Brian says Chicago peaked about a month ago. I think you're right. And it's like, well, Greg Taggart used to tell me that, it's not the 8-game winning streaks, it's the 8-game losing streaks. Where do those happen, right? You want them early, right? And, I think that's what we talk about, doing what you do, doing, do what the Monarchs do. And that's, continue to, oh, here we go. Yeah, that the Winnipeg Sun, is that the art? Somebody sent me this too a few minutes ago. Let me pull that up. Let me read that to you because I got that text about 10 minutes ago as well. I haven't had to read it. Let's see here. I'm going to read it to you right now. This is the Winnipeg Sun, and this is the one that was sent to me. Game 1 marred by gruesome injury to Murphy. And this is what I'd heard last night in the broadcast. We've got a really good fan, Nate, who's a Red Hawks guy. He listens to our broadcast, big fan of the league. Says that 16 women pulled by explosion of offense. Was marred by a gruesome injury to right fielder Max Murphy on Wednesday night at Shaw Park. Murphy was heading home on a fielder's choice when he collided violently with Fargo catcher Christian Correa, sending him airborne. Murphy was in immediately agony as he landed, clutching his left leg, which Rick Forney said was broken post-game. That's what I'd heard too. I'd heard the very same thing, but I didn't hear Rick Forney say that, but I'd heard the same thing. So an MVP candidate, and you know what? You don't want to, that's something that your prayers and thoughts go out to that young man. And I'd actually had a conversation with Rick 2 weeks ago when they were here. And I said, I love Max Murphy. I don't know him as a person, Rick, but he seems like he's a great ball player. I mean, that guy can play on my team any day. And he said, well, he's a great kid. He's a really good person. And knowing Rick, like I've known him over the years, Rick's a lot like Joe. He doesn't take a lot of knuckleheads don't play well in Winnipeg, right? Knuckleheads don't play well with Joe Capietro. And they're very similar type people when it comes to people, players they want. And Murphy, from all I've heard, is just a great dude. But it was a great win, he said, a huge cost. So we're not talking about losing the best player on our team. We're losing the best player in the league. You can't replace him. And again, yeah, that's tough. So yeah, somebody just texted that. Thank you for that there, Brian, because somebody texted that to my phone, but I hadn't a chance to get over, but I took the time. So there's your update. I was told last night post-game he broke his leg. I was told. But I didn't have all I was getting was secondhand information, but I was told by a reliable source that was the case. But that's what the newspaper had in Winnipeg this morning. So Winnipeg now will be shorthanded. Doesn't mean that they can't still squeeze out 1 or 2. I'm not saying they can't, but I mean, they're shorthanded. But you don't want to be, and I think this is what I really respect about our friend Nate, who's a big Red Hawk fan. he was saying, and the chat was going on. I'm doing the broadcast, so I didn't catch all of it. So I didn't see all this during the game. But he said, and I agree, you don't want to lose. You don't want that to happen to anybody, rival or not. So anyway. All right, last call here, folks. So you folks have been around a long time. I've been around a long time, almost an hour today. It's supposed to be a short show. Tomorrow we'll be back at the ballpark, hopefully. Back at the ballpark tomorrow. And great stuff today. We solved the attendance problems, I think. Did we? Or did I create more a mountain? Did I? Hey, let's do this background too as we go away. Let's do this. Hold on. Let's do this. This will be fun. I think this looks pretty cool. I just don't know how bright it was for y'all to do this. Let me see if it works. Talk amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves, folks. There we go. Let's see if it works. There we go. How about that? Kind of cool, right? It's a little oblong, but it does look cool. So. All right, guys. Tomorrow, we'll do this again tomorrow, brought to you by the Roastery Coffee Company. Again, Nitro Cold Brew right here. I've got the case of emergency break glass. It's my last one. And then I got to go to the store. Price Chopper today, 6 locations in Kansas City. There's one near you, or Price Chopper near you, either or. So there's that. Tomorrow, lunchtime, we'll get you ready for the broadcast tomorrow night. Again, 6:30 first pitch, 6 o'clock on the air tomorrow night. But once you're at the ballpark, monarchsbaseball.com for tickets. monarchsbaseball.com for tickets. Get your friends, family, countrymen, get them all out there. No excuse. No excuse. We want you there. And we would love to have you out. Have a great atmosphere tomorrow night. Try to close things out. Good talk. Thanks, mate. Appreciate you as well, Mark. You're a legend. Appreciate you, dude. Did I just dude you? I just did you, right? Anyway. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow at lunch. I don't know what we'll have. We're just going to rehash more of this. We'll talk more tomorrow about the pitching matchup in game number 2 of this one. And just we'll give you some keys to what I thought will happen for keys to victory for each club, really what to look for. Last night, my keys were pretty good. If you remember, my keys were obviously Matt Hall being Matt Hall. Greg Minier was Greg Minier. Those two things equaled out. Hall was much more the Matt Hall than Minier was the Minier, but he was still pretty good. The Monarchs did what they did. The approach the Monarchs took against the lefties, against Fargo, is the same approach they took against Minier. Eventually, it worked. And this club is just too good of a club and has been too selective. Don't forget the Monarchs up there that are the league leaders in walks, drawing walks. Casey did a hit last night. Grosjean was the other piece of the puzzle. Remember, we talked about Grosjean, Robson, and Malik Smith kind of as a combo platter. And Grosjean got you going early. So pretty much everything we talked about was spot on. Even what I talked about on This Week in the Association, when the bullpen got a little dicey, Alex Valdez was summoned. And that's what I said would happen, and it happened. So we were spot on. We'll do more of that tomorrow. Questions and comments as well. And we'll have some raspberry chocolate cold brew tomorrow as well. We'll have some, got a new supply of that coming this afternoon. So that'll be good. All right. Thanks for joining me here. Thank you guys for being here. Much love to you guys. This is your show. And appreciate y'all taking the time to stop by. Great broadcast last night. Great game last night. The Monarchs, the 5-2 winner. Matt Hall doing Matt Hall things, which is just outstanding work last night. And the Monarchs were 5-2 winners and classic playoff baseball, what this club does. All right. Ready for some 1, 2, 3, go Monarchs? I'm ready. You're ready. We're all ready. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Go Monarchs. I'll see you in the broadcast tomorrow at noon, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your NFL kickoff tonight, too. Better press the play button, right? Here we go. Here we go.